Welcome back to Open World Chat. I'm your host, John Odom, and I'm here with Mark Card, my co-host. Mark, what's up?
Yes, I'm the other host.
So we're standing at a turning point here, and that's that for the first time in 10 years, there is no Star Trek TV series actively in production as we speak. So
This
with
is correct,
that,
and the most current is going to take a hiatus between season 2 and 3.
well, at least though it has it will. It's had a season two. Well, anyways, what we're going to talk about is actually the status or what we see as the status of the franchise and what we might like to see going forward or what we might be likely to see going forward.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the characters and the stories. I'm sure we'll talk about some behind the scenes. But yeah, so the current series, one of the two current series, Starfleet Academy, was greenlit for a second season right out of the gate, but has not been greenlit for a third. So nothing's happening right now.
No, nothing's happening right now, and there are a lot of conspiracy theories, which I think we should talk about later.
Ooh, it sounds cool.
Um,
Some of them I might share.
it's it's kind of crazy. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Um, I don't know. I'm not sure where to start.
I'm
Uh,
not either. I just had the same problem. It's like I had a great intro idea
Well,
there.
let's start with this. The guy who's been in charge of Star Trek since what?
20.
Discovery,
Yeah.
which started in 2017.
Mhm.
Starfleet Academy is his last series. He will not
Well,
be
but do we know that for sure? It's his last one he's under contract for. His contract,
true.
we should mention we're talking about Alex Kurtzman here,
Yeah.
who,
And there's been a lot of unhappiness with his product in the fans. But see, the thing is, the question is that a lot of the fans, or is that just a very loud, obnoxious minority of fans?
right, right.
Because really the whole thing is just it's God, this is really stupid. People who should know better or people who know better and don't care are the ones who are complaining about his work mostly. And this is the whole it's anti-woke.
Yeah.
Star Trek is woke. When did Star Trek go woke? When was Star Trek anything but a space navy series, which is what I heard somebody call it the other day? And I'm like, uh, okay, I get it. You're in your 20s, and the only Star Trek you're really familiar with is probably Next Generation or DS9. And those all seem like a more adventure series. And you've probably never seen the original series, and you think it's all action, 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 but you're wrong. Star Trek has been woke from the very beginning, just like comic books, just like a whole bunch of things, you know. Uh, and it's like, look, this is what really bothers me about this particular portion of the fandom. And I have said this online many times. Perhaps Star Trek has never been for you. Perhaps you don't understand Star Trek. Perhaps you've never understood Star Trek. Maybe it would be better if you just stopped watching. That's my own personal bias. I think a lot of these people didn't get enough attention when they were children. So and I'm not putting everybody who doesn't like these series in the same basket. I think there are legitimate reasons people don't like these series. But I think a lot of the stuff you see online is nothing but people who want attention, people who want to complain, people who want to gatekeep, people who think this is their intellectual property and any other opinion is just invalid.
Yeah, let's talk about what Kurtzman Trek really looked like.
Right.
Um, I mean, it started with Discovery, where there was a lot of controversy, although that point, the controversy was mainly around the look of the Klingons, and the character of Michael being an adopted sister to Spock. Those were very controversial decisions that one of them was entirely backed off of. I look back at that first season and I see the Klingons again, and I just forgotten how weird they looked. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I just watched it for the first time and I thought, uh, I'm not done with it. This is the problem with me binge watching. I will binge watch until I just get sick of the series, and then I stop for a couple weeks. Um, but yeah, they're very disruptive. Those Klingons are, and it's jarring. It's strange. It's unusual, but I think those were the contemporary controversies. I think the real controversy now that people don't like about Discovery is the whole arc with Gray.
Yeah.
Oh no, someone who wants to be called they, them.
Yeah.
Oh no, not a pronoun.
The dreaded, the
The
dreaded
most the
pronoun.
most dangerous part of speech, the pronoun. And this is what I'm talking about is you know, what's what's the main problem here? Is it that Star Trek is too woke? Is it that they have different Klingons? Is it that, oh no, Spock has a sister? And I will admit, that one kind of bothered me at first. You could tell that one was kind of one of those things where they were just looking for some way to link a character to the original series. And I get that. And, I think there's another controversy going on with that show too. And I think the other controversy going on with that show is them bouncing back and forth. People were like, in fact, I saw a recent comment. Somebody watched Discovery blind and they said, well, what's the deal? It's supposed to take place before, Kirk and Spock in the original series. And then uh, somehow they're 900 years old. How did that happen? It's like, well, have you not watched the whole show? Do
Yeah.
you not know what's going on? And so I think I think the problem with all this stuff is more a problem with the fans than it is with the shows.
Well, it does create a challenge when you switch to pure, and that was the other big deal at the time, is where the new Star Trek is going to be more, purely serialized, not the standalone episodes. And
Right.
that's sort of the problem you create, I think, in general with that kind of media, is it can be hard to come in the middle of. And you're the co-creator, Brian Fuller. Everybody forgets that he was a co-creator of Discovery.
Right.
And, he did Hannibal, he did American Gods, he did Dead Like Me. He was the big shot on the show, and
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that came from him based on his history. And I wonder how much of that. I just wonder how much of the vision was whose in that context.
Yeah. And that's the other thing is that um, Star Trek, this is kind of has been a little bit of a problem with Star Trek, especially recent Star Trek, is it was the original series is the really the vision of one guy,
Hmm.
Gene Roddenberry. And when you get into Star Trek The Next Generation, it's not just one person who's going on here.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration. And people don't like collaborations usually unless they're very clear cut. Um, and then, you know, you get into the whole Berman, and I forget the other guy's name, who worked together. And, people were mad at them. They were mad at Enterprise. They were mad at DS9. And to some extent, I think anytime you introduce a new show, and even you have a problem with DS9 because it really just it breaks the mold. And the whole mold of the original Star Trek was wagon train to the stars. And when you've got a situation where you go from bouncing around the universe on a ship to bouncing around, to being on a static space station,
Hmm.
more or less, people hated it. So I wonder how much of this is just normal. I hate this. I hate this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's new. I hate it. I'm not going to like it. I don't like it. And then, 10 years later, people go, oh, I really love this. I miss this show so much. It's so it was so good, and there were no problems with it. So, it's this is just annoying. It's a fan problem.
Yeah, and I
Boy,
don't want to disrespect all the fans. Obviously, these shows have, Discovery has a very strong following, and
yes.
its ratings stayed strong up until the end. It was a little bit of a head scratcher that they went ahead and canceled it because it was still one of Paramount Plus's highest performing series.
Right.
It's possible that Strange New World set a new standard they expected to meet, which was really even more successful. Um, but it was still an odd creative choice, and it does feed the narrative somehow that people didn't like it, so it had to be destroyed. But it was actually very well liked, very well beloved, and I think you see a lot of that fan base carrying on to the current one, which takes place in the same time period with some of the same characters, Starfleet Academy, which
Yeah.
then earning some of the same hate also.
Well, Starfleet Academy is I think it's the most hated on TV show. I mean, hated on part of the Star Trek franchise ever.
Interesting. I
People
wonder if
really
I
hate,
agree. I'll have to think about that because it just
well,
got so bad with Discovery. It got so bad. The hate was just incredible.
well, also, the thing is, Star Trek Next Generation, uh, all the way up to, well, I say all the way up through DS9, you just don't have the problem of the internet carrying out what I think is what I call I just had a really clever name for it. Oh yeah, yeah, it's the MTV effect.
Mhm.
So the MTV effect was this. People I think who are now and this is just my opinion, so take it however you will. But I think there are people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who do not belong there, and that's mainly because of MTV.
Really?
Uh,
How do you mean?
Artists who were amplified and made or considered better than they really would be if you didn't have MTV.
You
And
sound
so
like
there are
I'm
some,
seriously
what?
old fogey now. Oh my God.
Sure, yeah, of course. But you have to accept who you are. But the point is, there are some people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who don't belong there, and who, if you had raised them, if they had become part of uh, what was if you had raised them as in an environment like all the way up to, I argue, all the way up to Enterprise, there was no internet.
Right.
And what the internet has really allowed to do is magnified and amplified and dispersed what I think is a pretty small group of people who are just really, really loud about it to complain about things like Discovery and Starfleet Academy and even back to Enterprise.
Hmm.
I think these people are getting magnified over and above. And this is not going on just in popular culture media. This is a big problem in politics. You have a known um, minority elected somebody who's terrible for the country.
Hmm.
And so, when we're talking about support for Trump, he's never cracked 50% in popularity. He's the only president since polling has been going on where the president has not reached 50%.
Yeah, we'll hope that record doesn't fall. Or
No, well, yeah, the way it's going now, I don't see it happening. I don't, it might be hard for him to break 40.
yeah. Well, anyways, the other thing, just in terms of the time period, talk about the internet. I think the other huge difference between Star Trek now and then is, with the exception of Voyager, is syndication.
Yeah.
That enabled it to generate a much larger audience, much broader audience. which drowned out I think some of the hardcore weenies, because there's always been hardcore weenies complaining about
Yeah.
Star Trek is not good enough for them. But syndication really got it to a larger audience, and that's really where Next Generation had its success and launched the others, DS9. The
I really
original
think that's where,
series
yeah,
did not
that's where
have
DS9
success.
got its success too.
Yeah, yeah. And the original wasn't even successful until syndication. Really. I mean, it actually that's not true. It did vary if they broke out the ratings by demographics as they do now. Star Trek in its original incarnation was doing quite well in the polls under some certain key demographics.
Right,
It
right.
would not have been canceled under current thinking. But still, it really blossomed in syndication. And when you bottle these things up into, Paramount Plus, you first of all, you're limiting your audience overall, but your audience is going to be a higher percentage of the weenies and the weasels.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think a lot of these people don't watch Trek, never have watched Trek.
Yeah.
They're just getting on the anti-woke bandwagon.
Or a lot of them may have watched the Kelvinverse shows. Kel the Kelvin shows were, and it's interesting. There's a couple reasons to bring them up. Um, and
You talking about
that's
the movies?
the movies, yeah, the Kelvin
Yeah,
timeline, the Abrams verse. Uh,
right.
you've got, that was the millennials Star Trek, right? And that was Star Trek to them was those movies, and they were pretty successful. But they were much more pure action adventure.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
closest thing, I mean, they still had the multicultural crew, but that was hardly controversial in back in the teens there. They did make indicate that Sulu was gay, so
right.
that was the closest thing to a reach. But some of these folks may have been trained on the idea of Star Trek as just another Star Wars.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think that's true too. I really do. That's yeah, that's why some people think this is just an action series.
Hmm.
On the other hand, a lot of the diehard Trek fans think Abrams trashed it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm somewhere in between. I think I think Abrams is the Zack Snyder of Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh, geez. No,
By that I mean he had a very limited, uh, not limited, constrained idea of what Star Trek was or could be.
mm,
And I think, he had his vision for Star Trek, and it was pretty different from the original vision. And as I said, it got amplified with uh, it just got amplified because he did exclusively tentpole movies.
mhm.
And I'll tell you, I like them. I think they're great. Uh, I think they do very well, but there's something that's different about them. The same way there's something different about uh, the DCU with Zack Snyder or DCEU with Zack Snyder in charge.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I probably enjoyed those movies more than you did. Not the second one. The second one,
No,
we
I liked him, but it's the third one that I don't like very much.
oh, the third one?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I don't love the third one. It's not one that inspires repeated watchings to me, but it felt like an episode.
Yeah, I like them all. And I think particularly the best casting though is Simon Pegg as Scotty.
And I think the casting of that whole thing was, although well, in general, I think the casting of the whole thing was good, but our new Uhura there, why am I not thinking of her name? She's very
Zoe
well.
Saldana.
Yeah, thank you. She never quite worked for me, I gotta say. But even though I like her as an actress and I like her presence on the screen, but other than that, I think the casting was fantastic.
Yeah, and it's different. It's just different, and uh, one of the big problems here is fans don't want to see different. They want to see what they saw in the series before, and if they
Mhm.
don't see that, they're going to squawk about it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think there are legitimate criticisms for all of these series, even the original series, which is my favorite one still by far.
Mm.
But that's just because I'm an old guy and the the particular vibe of the show um, felt different. It was more according to my own contemporary experience. But don't get me wrong, I'm loving Discovery. I think it's great, and I think it's a fitting addition to the series, and I'm willing to overlook some stuff.
Now, as we have said, of course, Kurtzman's contract runs through 2026. There's
Yeah.
nothing going on right now. That suggests to me either one of two things. Either we're walking away from Star Trek, which seems unlikely, one way or the other, because it has been profitable, even though it has not been as profitable as they might have liked.
But what TV show really is? I mean, these days especially.
Well, Next Generation, it was.
Well, yes, but
It was
Next
huge.
Generation went off the air 30 years ago.
I know, but it's always the standard, because it did so well and was watched by so many people. Everyone's like, we got to recapture that.
Yeah,
Uh,
not till about season three.
yeah, though that's true.
It was about season three before it finally got off the ground.
Well, got off good. Yeah, became good.
And people were, it was more or less just diehard Trek fans up till season three. And season three is when it caught fire. But this is another problem these days. Uh, so I just read a thing from Paramount about this whole merger deal that they're dealing with
Yeah.
that's been proposed. And one of the really big uh, obstructions in these whole negotiations, besides waiting for politics to play out, is uh, whether or not if Paramount and Netflix merge, will they stop producing movies for theater, for movie theaters?
They've said
And
they won't. I mean, Ellison has sworn up and down they're not
yeah,
going to do
he
that.
said they won't. In fact, he came out and said that any movie which is going to be released to the theaters will have a minimum of 45 days.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, to old guy here, 45 days, that's really short for a run of a movie.
Mhm.
When we were much younger, they would run for 3, 4, 5 months
Yeah.
before they left. And now content is just so easy to produce for these people that 45 days is a long time to keep a movie in space, held in a theater. But I think overall, we've had this degradation of fan expectations for how long shows run, how many episodes they have. Uh, you know, uh, this new Game of Thrones series, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This season is 6 episodes,
Yeah.
and yes, they're very intense episodes, and yes, you know, uh, they're very expensive to produce, but it's 6 1-hour episodes.
That's a long movie. What
Yes,
that is. Yeah.
that's exactly what it is. And people like that. But man, I miss the 22 episode season of hour-long shows.
Which was the other part of and that is the structure under which Star Trek always thrived.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Because it even though the original series was episodic, it gave you a chance to build something over time.
Mhm.
I was talking to Reinhard, the guy we had as a guest, talking about sound editing, and he said if he were going to start in the business now, just as a beginner, he would have done TV. And he said the problem is this: uh, with movies, you might have 20 minutes to establish a backstory for characters.
Mhm.
With TV, you've got a whole year.
Yeah.
If you produce for a whole year, you've got a whole year to set up characters.
Mhm.
And so you end up with this environment where it's much easier to plan and plot for longer seasons. But what are you doing? You're shortening the season and you are shortening the episode count.
Yeah.
And then the other problem I see that Star Trek has had to fall to, specifically structural problem with the studio system, is um, just much smaller audiences in general
Yeah.
for everything.
Well, it's
There's
because
so
everything's so
much,
compartmentalized now across the streaming services.
yeah, then they go seriously episodic.
Yeah.
So if a show takes off, it'll go for 5, 6, 7 years, but nobody has a chance to get used to the show.
Mhm.
No, there is no possibility to kind of let the show grow into its own.
Right. Right.
And I think a lot of shows that are considered some of the best or most beloved shows now would never have made it in this environment. And I'm thinking of Buffy. Buffy has a rough first season,
Yeah.
a really rough first season. And it's only really at the very end with, the last 2 or 3 episodes uh, ending in Prophecy Girl that people went, oh, now we see what they're trying to do. And then season 2 made it even more popular because Joss Whedon started relying on his time on what was essentially a prime time half-hour soap opera, Roseanne, and he started introducing more of a soap opera element to the writing with the whole love story and Angel Gone Bad. And so I just don't think either you are A-list quality right out of the bag, or you're going to get canceled.
Yeah.
And I think that's a terrible disservice. And this is where I rail against finance bros. Finance bros irritate the hell out of me because they ruin everything they do. And, it's that whole dumb uh, trope that you don't have to make a good show. You don't have to put out a good product. You don't have to do anything for fans. The only thing you have to do is increase profits for the shareholders.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you've succeeded.
Right.
Which is why there are a lot of really bad TV shows out there that go on and on and on forever, and
Mhm.
a lot of really good TV shows, Firefly, which end up dead.
Yeah. Yep. And as you say, it's only gotten worse as you've gotten these choke points. The the other thing that concerns me about all these changes, and I know I keep talking going back to this moment that we're at right now where everything is likely to change. And that's that David Ellison seems to be taking a much more hands-on approach to his properties. It could just be the
Uh,
news properties, but I suspect not, because I think the same forces that are pushing his what he feels is his freedom to really meddle are going to be at play in series like the Star Trek franchise. So I worry about the transition. I worry about who we're going to get. Now, we have seen David Ellison Star Trek before, and that was the Abrams verse.
yeah.
So we could be looking at something with that flavor coming back if he gets hands on, or maybe I'm just being completely paranoid about this.
Well, I'm going to go even more paranoid just for the fun of it. I'm going to suggest, and not fully seriously, but what if all these review bombers for Star Trek Starfleet Academy are setting up that?
Mhm.
What if he's actually gone out and recruited people to complain and say, oh, this is terrible. Go back to Space Navy, go back to action, because that's the kind of thing he wants to make. And now he can go, oh, look at the fans. The fans don't want this stuff like you have in Discovery and Starfleet Academy. The fans want the Abrams versus Star Trek, all action, no meaning.
Yeah, you
I
know,
think that's entirely possible. I
I
don't think I don't think it's likely, but I definitely think it's possible. James Gunn pointed that out in the Superman movie where he had evil monkeys doing all the bombing on the on Twitter, and I'm going to continue to call it Twitter because
yeah,
nobody calls it X. Nobody,
yeah.
nobody who doesn't work for Elon Musk anyway. But yeah, and I mean, I would not be surprised if there's some of that kind of manipulation going on. It's not just the algorithm at work here. It's also It's also deliberate manipulation of the audience through the internet. I guarantee you they're doing a lot of that.
So, assuming we go forward and assuming Trek isn't going to take a hiatus for a while again, I don't think it'll ever be gone. The IP is just worth too much,
Yeah.
even when it's not doing as well as they think it should. It's still profitable. Um, Either we're going to get some, Ellison Good Soldier dropped in there, or we're likely to either get Akiva Goldsman, who's the current showrunner for Strange New Worlds, who they go way back. He's been involved in all of the Kurtzman stuff. So that would probably keep us the same tone. Or the fan favorite choice is Terry Matalas, who's also been involved for a while, but was the showrunner for the last season of Picard. So, what do you think? Which would be your choice, given those backgrounds? We're going to get, I'd say, a good soldier dropped in to de-wokeify everything.
Right. Yeah.
Or we're going to get Akiva Goldsman, who's the Strange New Worlds showrunner, been
Right.
very involved in this the whole time, going way back. That would be probably wouldn't be too much of a tonal shift, although you never know what happens when you give a new person the keys to the kingdom. Or there's the fan preferred alternative you hear a lot, Terry Matalas, who was the showrunner for the last season of Picard that everybody loved.
Yeah.
Also somebody heavily involved in the franchise, not, just beyond that. So if you had your druthers, which one, or did you want to see someone else entirely? Give me your dream showrunner here.
I'm telling you, I have really, really, really liked Strange New Worlds.
Hmm.
I think it has recovered the tone. I think it's a little less. Look, I'm all for progressive Star Trek. I
Yeah.
think it's good. And we'll talk about this in a minute when I want to talk more about Starfleet Academy because there's there's a specific complaint about the show I want to address specifically. I want to address it directly because it's oh sorry. It's just it's really stuck on my craw, something that people are complaining about.
Hmm.
Um, but I would be more than happy to have Akiva Goldsman do it. And I think he will figure out a way to, you know, bring in social issues. Because to me, science fiction is worthless if you're not using it like a mirror
Hmm.
to general society. And that's one of the things that Star Trek has done extremely well. You know, it's the whole context of DS9. There are so many moral dilemmas in that show simply because of what's going on in society and how it reflected society at the time. Um, and I would like to see Akiva Goldsman take over because I think he's going to be able to balance the adventure action elements of it and the social elements. Picard, the third season was great, but it was great mainly for one reason, as far as I can tell, and that was fan service.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was pure fan service, which is why Madalis is now the fan favorite, right?
Right, right.
I honestly, I'm going to be a little different here, and I'm going to say I wouldn't mind another voice.
But that'd be great with me too. But
Yeah, I I have really enjoyed Strange New Worlds, and it's been leaving me a little more cold lately. And I've been trying to think about why, and I think it's because it's lost that balance of plot and character. And I think it's gone the direction that you wouldn't normally expect. I think it's instead of balancing the two cleanly, I think plot has drifted off as a secondary concern. I think we're much more interested in Strange New Worlds now with the characters to the exclusion of sometimes better stories.
how much
And
of that do you think is studio pressure?
I think my gut tells me that they've been given what we've seen, that they've been given a lot of rope by that Kurtzman's really been given largely free rein until the recent spate of cancellations started. Um, that's, but I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. Um, it's hard to say. And as soon as that comes out of my mouth, that sounds wrong. Uh, So, but that's a good question. But I mean, I like the increased character stuff. I do. I just don't want to lose emphasis on plot. I don't want to have to trade one for the other. And I
Well, I
feel
think
like,
they may have really written themselves into a corner because to me, when it first started, I think the main point of the plot is to drive Pike to his ignominious end. And so the show was all about how do you do that? How do you manage that?
mm,
How does that affect his decisions? How does that degrade or raise his character? And I'm not talking about the character himself. I'm talking about the character's character, his
mm,
moral temperament, how he deals with it. And so, in a way, I think they've written themselves into a corner. They People know what the end is, and now
mm,
the only question is how do you get to the end?
Well, I don't think we'll see that. I think we'll have well, we know we don't get, if we're going to have if they're setting up a Star Trek year one,
Hmm.
we know it isn't until at least year two of the original series because we're in the middle of the 5 year mission, or at
Right,
least when the original series shows up, and it's in that process or in that period that Pike has his accident. So we
right.
wouldn't see his accident at the end of Strange New Worlds unless they did a time jump forward, which I hope
And
they will.
Star Trek never does time jumps forward.
That's
Enterprise.
so yeah, so who knows? I One of the things I would like to see is, I guess I've got this sort of lingering in my craw a little bit. And I'm watching Starfleet Academy. I'm liking some of it. I'm feeling alienated by some of it. I'm respecting all of it. And I can see, of course, from the corporate standpoint, what they're trying to do is
Hmm.
similar to what they tried to do with Prodigy, and they decided it didn't work. And as far as bringing in other age groups, but I still get this feeling that as of that, Star Trek has decided to give me what it thinks I I should want to see, as opposed to what I really want to see. And I'm talking about Star Trek Legacy. Why couldn't we get that? Everybody wanted to see that. There was so much noise made of that. Captain Seven, flying off at the end of Picard, that would have been a great series. We all felt like it was being set up to be a series. And there was so much fan push for a series with that cast. Um, and it was never given the time of day. And I feel like that's the difference between the Star Trek universe right now and the Star Wars universe is Star Wars, maybe to a fault, is giving fans what they want to see. And by to a fault, I mean, do we have to have more Mandalorian again? But but on the other hand, they are giving us parts of filling out canon from of the sort of stuff people are curious to see. I want to see that. I want to see what happened, here. I want to see what happened with these characters. And they are responsive to that in a way that Star Trek is not. And I don't want to sound like one of the haters because I'm not. I'm a big Discovery fan, even though I did often have kind of a love-hate relationship with it. I miss it very much. Those last couple
Yeah,
seasons in particular, I thought were terrific. Um, but I still wish they would be a little more responsive to fans. Doesn't have to, we don't have to switch gears suddenly and give season three of Picard everything's super fan service. We actually get a fair amount of fan service I mean, in a sense, Strange New Worlds is fan service, but
oh,
we
definitely.
get
The
it.
whole
We get we had the whole love letter to DS9 episode in
Yeah.
Starfleet Academy. So we're getting fan service, but sometimes that fan service feels kind of tacked on. I
I
just
think a
not,
lot of fan service feels tacked on.
yeah,
I think it's really hard to integrate fan service in unless it's an Easter egg and have it not
which is
feel
why
like
you got
it's
to have a
tacked on.
vision that's consistent with what's come before, as opposed to, I don't know. It still is. I'm still bugged that I wanted a new Star Trek series and we got Starfleet Academy. It's okay, I guess. It's all right. I mean, I'll watch it, I guess.
Well, I'm trying to employ the first season rule. I think it's had some really good episodes for its first season. But my real, since you brought it up, my real problem with this is all the stupid review bombing. All these people are jumping in online and saying, "Oh, this is a terrible show. This is not Star Trek." And if you just ask them a couple of questions about Star Trek, they reveal completely they've never watched a single freaking episode.
Yeah.
You don't know what Star Trek's about. They have no connection to it. They don't know what they're, talking about. And so, but there's this one specific thing that drives me nuts. Okay, so what do you think the biggest complaint about Holly Hunter as a quote captain, end quote?
Barefoot,
Not just barefoot,
snuggling up in the couch in the
the
captain's
way she
chair.
sits on the captain's chair.
I know that really bugs my wife. It's hilarious. I'm like,
Well,
oh, come on, it's kind of cute.
okay, well, here's the thing I know about this, right? So, in my studies as a PhD in political science with a specialization in international conflict, let me just tell you this about leaders and military commanders. They are all oddballs. They all do weird things like this.
Mhm.
General George Patton designed his own tanker's uniform, and the helmet was a gold football helmet. He was also the richest man in the U.S. Army and did not go to school until West Point.
That's
So these people are weird. Where do you think their genius comes from? They are all idiosyncratic. They are all unconventional. And it's that unconventional thinking, which is often reinforced in unconventional things like sitting sideways barefoot in the captain's chair.
well, I think some people are um, reacting to maybe a lack of professionalism, excuse me. Um, and I can understand. I rather like it. I rather like it. But folks like my wife, I think that's what they're seeing. I think they're seeing this woman in charge acting unprofessional, and it sticks in their craw.
Well, I like that she is the anti-Janeway. And honestly, in my experience with people at command at that level, that's what they're like. They know what the rules are, but when you're on a ship in the middle of space and you are the person in charge and there's very, very little supervision, you do what works for you and you don't worry about anybody else. And I think that's actually a pretty good description of what people at this level do, not what they should do, not how, what I told somebody the other day in a comment was these people learn the rules and follow the rules until they don't have to anymore. And then they know exactly how and where and why and when to break the rules. And keep in mind, with her character, she is hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
She has seen what happens to people who fall, the quote that really comes to me is the one by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said, consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
And the fact is, the really great commanders are not all buttoned up, do everything by the book people. And that's not just reflected in their tactical or strategic decisions, it's also reflected in the way they conduct themselves. So yes, Patton was great about discipline, and that's part of the reason why his army succeeded where others didn't. But he was a flake, and he didn't care who saw him as a flake. So I think that's kind of a little microcosm for
Yeah.
the problem that Star Trek has. Some people have a very specific idea of what it should and should not be, and they
Yeah.
don't want to have it deviate from that, and they don't want to do anything different, and they don't want to have a different vision presented to them. And I
Yeah.
think that's the best part about Star Trek is you have these series which all have kind of a common thread, but they're all very different from each other.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that's the strength of Star Trek, not the weakness of it.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm not bashing Starfleet Academy. I feel a little disappointed by it. But I'm gonna keep watching. I'm gonna
Well,
keep
and the thing for me with Starfleet Academy is the two main characters, Paul Giamatti, the big bad, and Holly Hunter, the careful steward of these plebes futures, the acting is terrific.
Yeah, I wouldn't call Paul Giamatti a main character since he's only been in like three
Well,
episodes, but
you know he's going to be.
I think we're going to stick with the I mean I think we're going to stick with Holly Hunter, but I think the focus on Caleb, I mean he to me is the central character.
Well,
Um
he's the character the audience is meant to follow.
right. Well,
But
but he
I'm
can
talking about on the call sheet. On the call sheet, and the thing is, I think that we are going to see Paul Giamatti as a main character because he's the guy that tormented the crap out of his mother, out of the main character's mother.
he is shaping up to be one of the just most evil, creepy, disturbing villains they've ever had in the whole franchise. He
That's what they
really
need.
shines. He really shines. Yeah.
They need that. They need somebody who's just horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. So Trek needs a strong villain, uh, and especially if you're talking about a group of people who are pretty much unformed, who have not been brought into the values and mores and operating procedures of Star Trek. They need somebody who's going to mold their experience. And all of the great captains had that. I'm thinking specifically of Kirk and Kodos.
Hmm. We're all about him.
Well, Kirk was there when Kodos
Yeah.
was killing people,
Yeah.
and it was early in his career, so he was really a strong influence in how Kirk approached what he was doing,
Yeah.
and almost to the point to where he becomes totally unhinged in that episode. And so, especially if you're talking about a series which deals with people who are just being introduced to Star Trek and I mean, to Starfleet and its values, especially people who have, how long has it been since the burn? 100 years,
Hmm.
and so they're just kind of getting back on their footing. Now, I do have another bone to pick with them. Why would you have a separate war college?
That's never been laid out in a way that makes any sense.
It doesn't
Um,
make any sense. Starfleet, it's in any military academy, you're going to have people who are dedicated to science, people who are dedicated to exploration, people who are
right.
dedicated to engineering, people who are dedicated to communication. You would never split them out.
Yeah, that's silly. It doesn't make it, yeah. It's
That's an artificial, that's a writing convention. So you have uh, a way for them to have somebody to oppose each other.
yeah.
And then, oh, they're all decide to become, team members at the end.
Hmm. What, the Starfleet Academy folks don't know how to fight either? What? I mean, what is that? It doesn't
Yeah, that
make any sense.
that that's a plot convention which does
Yeah.
not work at all.
And they didn't give it a sec. I mean, you can tell it got zero thought put into it. Uh,
Yeah. They
that's
went, okay, well, we need a group. The writers' room sat down and said, we need a group to be their rivals.
mhm.
Never mind, you could have just made it so that you have two different factions within the academy itself.
Well, I hope we get more the direction you're thinking of what's his name? Braca, the villain.
Yeah,
Is that his name?
yeah.
Yeah. Where he gets more front and center because those episodes with him have been standout. But I have a feeling we're just going to get deeper, deeper into the Caleb Tarima thing.
Yeah.
That's going to consume even more of the screen time. But we'll see. I mean, yeah, we'll just have to see, I guess. I mean, they constrain themselves. You can't have too many big, high stakes action adventure, you know, death defying blah blah stories if you're dealing with cadets. You can't treat them like a regular crew. They're only going to go out pretty rarely, and if something goes badly, it's going to have to be if it happens all the time, you're going to stop believing that they're going to be sending them out at all. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that completely. You can't have too many high drama things going on
Yeah. Or there's not that
because
kind of drama.
no, because you know, just when you just, I mean, people say, well, you want it to be really, really realistic. Well, yeah, the realism is you lose a cadet on a training mission, they shut it down.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody else goes on training missions until you've got it all figured out and how you're going to get all this done and how this is going to be prevented. It just gets shut down. We're done. We're over. It's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
So you can't have too much of that because you kill some cadets and they're going to shut down the academy. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's true. We've already lost one down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yes, and they are definitely moping about it. And the thing is, the academy would be like, "All righty, this is the risk. Move on."
I am psyched about episode 10, though. I can't wait to see where they go with it.
Yeah, me too. I can't. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. I am sure that it's going to be a big, glorious, kind of crazy thing.
Mhm.
And when you've got people like uh, Holly Hunter on one side and you've got Paul Giamatti on the other, it's going to be big and it's going to be well acted and it's not going to be trashy and it's not going to be uh, small potatoes. It's going to be big. And so it'll be great. I can't wait.
All right, so let's start to wrap this up with a bow here with a question. Um, the state of the Star Trek franchise, how would you describe it?
It's
Strong, weak, tenuous, robust?
I'm going to take the easy way out and say it's undetermined.
Hmm.
I don't think we know what's going to happen. And I think it's potentially strong. I mean, I think if they can figure out how to do Star Trek, the transition from uh, Strange New Worlds to Year One, I think that could be great. I think it really stands. I think there's potential here, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on studio decisions.
Yeah. I think it's standing on a knife's edge myself. I
Yeah.
think I think and I almost expect, I'm trying not to expect it because I don't want to manifest anything, but it to fall to the same type of studio dysfunction that the movie series has, which is now in oblivion, even though it was profitable and there was universal interest in making another one, and directors would come and go, and writers would come and go, and finally it's just gone. I think between that and possible ideological interference, this thing could get hung up for a very long time, and we could be looking at a big gap. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong, but that's that's my fear.
Oh, I think there's a lot of truth to that statement. I think a lot of this is going to depend on financial and political decisions. And right now, I think the political decisions are the most important ones. I think there is a definite anti-woke uh, movement in politics and media. And here's what I tell you, what I'm going to make a very small scale prediction because I don't like making predictions very much. I don't like being wrong, but I think you're going to sacrifice uh, story for political correctness.
Yeah.
I think you're going to go to simple action adventure and you're going to lose the most important part of science fiction, which is holding it up as a mirror to society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact is that side of the political spectrum does not want a mirror held up to it.
Mhm.
They know they're corrupt. They know they're doing the wrong things all around. They know they are leading us toward fascism, and they don't want anybody exposing that. And that's going to be a problem.
And just for the record out there, I agree with you completely. That doesn't mean every single episode has to be that way. And but you don't want to lose it as an essential element of
Right. I
franchise.
agree with that
You
too.
know,
And I think,
Wrath of Khan's statement was completely personal. It wasn't political at all, and you didn't get it in that series until you came down hard environmental on four.
right.
But so they don't all have to be like that, but it has to be a fundamental element of the series.
Because otherwise, it's not Star Trek.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not Star Trek if you're not making social commentary.
yeah.
I'm sorry, all you DEI warriors, the people who think that, going back to action adventure is superior story writing. is superior TV and movies, but it's not.
Hmm.
Uh, if you're making science fiction and it's not holding up a mirror to society, you have failed.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be every episode. And in fact, my biggest criticism of the Kurtzman stuff is he violates the fundamental rule of screenwriting, which is show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And no more telling, more showing. No more telling, more showing. And you definitely do not sacrifice anything in the storytelling if you do that. You can get your point across. And this is not me saying, well, if they would just get it out of my face. No, I want it in my face, but I want it story driven. But I want it story driven.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Right on.
And if you do that, if you can figure out how to do this again, then Star Trek will explode. But that's the real problem here. How do you balance that?
Well, we'll have to check back in on this in another year and see what we're actually. I think the picture will be pretty clear by then.
Yeah, and it might be a really short show. Well, there is no Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. The end.
I hope that's not true because it's been around more or less since I was, born.
Well, if it has a gap,
It started in 66 when I was 3 years old. The biggest real gap is between the original series and the animated series.
oh, is that true? Oh, I'll have to do the numbers.
Well, it might have been
Yeah.
it might have been longer between the end of the animated. Yeah, it's longer between the end of the animated series and Next Generation.
Or Enterprise and the movies. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I have to look at that. See, if I was good, I'd be able to tell you. Boom. Not that
Yeah,
good.
we have other things we got to do.
All right, folks. Speaking of that, we're going to let you be, and yeah, we'll come back next year and see where we're at with all this. Hopefully, it'll be good news.
Oh, all I have to say is live long and prosper.
Yep. Peace and long life.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.